I want you to try this meditation with me. Imagine that you're in a doctor's office. The doctor walks in to where you are laying to tell you that you're paralyzed from the waist down and will never walk again. Get in touch with that situation. Try and be very honest with yourself. What's the first thought that you're thinking as the doctor tells you the news? Once you have that thought, I want you to think about why that was your first thought. What does that teach you about you? Now think about how that would affect your self worth, how that would affect your relationships, and what that situation would reveal to you about life in general. That's exactly what happened to Patrick Young. After a great year of professional basketball, he got in a wreck that offseason that ended his career. 2 years removed from that accident, we reflect on the lessons he's learned since. Can you just start off by giving people a little bit of background? What happened 2 summers ago to you?
As I was preparing for marriage and a new chapter in my life of being a dad and a husband, I was in a car accident that left me paralyzed from the waist down. And obviously, in that time, uh, every vision that I had of what my life was going to look like shifted, and I didn't see what that was yet. And it was and is an opportunity uh, to redefine my purpose, my passions, and to understand the only limits that we have on ourselves are the ones that we put there. So really excited to share with you all today, and can't wait for these questions I know our guys got for me.
Well, here's my question for you. Let's start with this. How tall are you and how much did you weigh? How much body fat did you have when you were playing at your highest level?
6'9", put those orthotics in, 6'10", you could fudge that a little bit. um 250, between 245 and 255. And then I was always around like 5% body fat in my top. um and just high energy as a basketball player, high energy, gritty, dive on the floor, block your shot, laugh at you. Like I'm not, wasn't a trash talker, but I did always want to make you feel like, man, that dude is trying to dominate us. That's my game.
There was an absolute physical presence to you, one that you can identify with, and then that can be stripped from you.
Yeah,
Talk about the transition.
it's really hard, really, really hard when you feel as though your world has collapsed and you don't know what the next step is. Where do you go from there? Fine, and truth is simple. My sobering statement whenever I get in a rut, say, you know what, this could be worse. I I'm here. There's a lot of people. There's thousands of people that got in car accidents in that same year that aren't here with us anymore. I was actually just at a gala for a kid here in Jacksonville, Florida, that was at Stetson playing football. 19 years old, was killed by a drunk driver. His parents started a foundation in his name, to help prevent things like that happening again. Like, man,
Let me ask you something on that, Pat. They say that the root of unhappiness is focusing on what you don't have as opposed to what you do have. When have you in your own life found truth with that statement?
every single day, every single day we have to combat that because look, did we have to be taught why it's good to be kind, why we should share, why we should just things that uh go against if we think just survival, cave, like why would I waste my energy when concerned about myself? I want to waste my energy trying to help you. And I'm so grateful that we are way beyond those times where most people, I like to believe, see your neighbor as an equal, as a friend. Um, and there's times where we don't, where we struggle with that. Like where it's shown up for me, um, with jealousy and envy and what, yeah, and you experience this in competition. And sometimes when other people are getting the glory or getting recognized, and you're like, I used to beat them so bad back in the day or whatever. And that gets in the way of you focusing of me focusing on what I do have. Why am I worried about, like, I have my own platform. This is my life. I'm one of one. No one else can be a better Patric Young than Patric Young. Same thing you can say for yourself. And it's really important that you know what that means to you as well.
I think about you and I think about the University of Florida. Athletes that go to the University of Florida have to be singularly focused. And so they become over identified with their sport. And when it's taken away from them, it's who am I? My question for you is now that you've transitioned, how did you not get over identified with your unique situation to where it doesn't define you?
Yeah, that's probably the best question you've ever asked, and they're all good. Oh gosh, where to start there? I am fortunate that in my playing career, my first major injury was a little bit of a test for me to see, all right, now that you tore your ACL and you can't play basketball, you're not traveling with the team, you're not like, who are you? Like, you cannot, you're not on the court dunking and getting fans and playing games, you're not in the spotlight. Who are you now? And that prepared me, I think, for what to, it gave me some benefit, some, it was advantageous to have gone through that before, to say, like, I know I and everybody will say this in the room, every athlete, I know I'm more than an athlete. I know I'm more than that. But when it's actually really taken away from you, and it's not like, oh, I got to retire from soccer because there's just not a path. It's like, no, you're not playing rec league, adult rec league. It's gone after that. If you don't have it, and now to not be identified, you can't control that. And I'm never going to be angry about being recognized, in my opinion, what a guy that's trying to make the most and be inspirational to as many people as possible. If that's the reputation, man, I must be doing something right.
I just want everyone to have an empathy line here. Imagine 10 days before you're supposed to get married, you find out that you're paralyzed. Just get in touch with that thought for a second and just think about the thoughts you'd be having and how you would then accept the situation moving forward. So much uncertainty. And Pat, one of the things that a lot of people deal with is uncertainty. And you have an anchor statement, the difference between even if and what if. Can you talk about that?
I remember my wife and I doing premarital counseling, like a workbook or whatever, that had us have some conversations on, like, what are you going to do if this were to happen, or if this were to happen? And then there was a lot of them. And our answer for most of them was like, I guess we're going to know when it happens, because you can't prepare for everything, but you can know that your mindset is, your mental toughness is going to persevere and fight through anything that comes your way. And it helps so much to not be alone in whatever you're going through. I don't want to say it's impossible, but we make things so much harder on ourselves when we strive to handle the really hard things that we face on our own.
And I will challenge everyone to get in touch with Pat, what Pat just said. There are people that I know that keep on their screensaver, change what if to even if. And even if fill in the blank happens, I can still be my best self. And what's interesting about you, Pat, and probably the most fascinating piece of your journey was, again, you have a physical presence. When you get married, you inherit a daughter and you can pick things off the top shelf. You can lift her up. All that was removed. How did you redefine how you looked at the word masculinity?
I hated at first, like, that was the first realization of, like, not being able to dance with my wife, not being able to, like, play with my daughter the way that I would, like, I envisioned. She's really into sports. And just so many, yeah, like, so many other things that I had been doing my whole life. when it came to like family and friends and just like our connections. Um, and it was discouraging. And I had to, I went to see some in a, I was going through a physical rehab program here in Jacksonville, and they also had, if you needed it, and I did, a psychologist to assist you. And she was like, yeah, so what that you can't do X, Y, and Z. It's like, can you still love your wife? Can you still love your daughter? Can you still like it? Things are going to be different, but everything, like your vision for exactly how it was going to go, it wasn't even going to go exactly that way if this didn't happen. But now that you're in this space, you get to discover new ways to connect.
Hey Pat, can I interject right there on that? Because again, we have physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And a lot of times, prior to something like this happening, we overvalue the physical aspect of it. And then when you
Yes.
start to tap, when that's removed and you tap into the
Yes.
mental, emotional, and spiritual support, what have you learned about that?
We need to have, it's odd to say like, have 25% in each bucket, because that doesn't, it, each one, as you would go to the gym and train your body, if you were consistent in trying to be healthier, stronger, whatever, better shape, you would have some type of plan or program or something that you could show up for and have. None of us, not saying on none, a lot of us learn, especially athletes, we learn how to train the body. We didn't learn how to train our emotions, train our mentality, train how when things aren't going my way and it's maybe affecting my identity, the spiritual aspect and your perspective on what your sport actually, like what that position actually is in your life. Look, we love sports. The world would go on if they didn't exist. You would go on if they didn't exist. You're so much more, we are so much more than that. But when we say, all right, just gonna put it all in the physical, a little bit on the mental, we gotta have some mental toughness. But like, okay, I'm a hothead. I can't control my emotions. Oh, I can't remember the last time I meditated. Can't remember the last time I prayed.
Why do you think that you weren't as aware of those other three dimensions? And then once you get into that space, realizing, wow, like this is the whole game, there's almost a blessing with the accident.
I don't think we realize, and uh, maybe spiritual health has just be, the thing with churches and the revivals and whatnot has gone through our country, but the mental and emotional aspects have been so neglected for so long that how can you think you need help with something if like it's never talked about, it's never thought of. So that's where the lack was for me. And especially if what are you seeing in your household environment is so much like I love my dad so much, but he has the same issue a lot of us men have in graduating with a fifth year or a fifth grade degree in emotional intelligence. A lot of us have. Hey, I'm finally back in high school. I'm back in high school. We'll get my maturity college one day. Um, what was the second part of that?
It's almost like the accident becomes a blessing because you feel so much gratitude that you now have exposure to these things.
Oh man, it's hard to get to that place. That is the place I think everyone, when faced with something really hard, we want to get to that place where our depression finally gets back to peace. There's a long process, and it's not a straight line to get there. It's like success. How we've seen a million times people say success is like this. I think the fight and battle we have to go through it. Like I said before, praying is great. One prayer ain't gonna do it. Uh, Conversations are great. One is not gonna do. There's consistency showing up with yourself, addressing and identifying the starting destination of the GPS to get to where I want to go. Um, and I really challenge you guys to show up for yourselves, because I mean, I've just had so much time reflecting on, and I'm 33 years old, just reflecting on my time in my 20s. And you, there's a lot of things just wish I would have. I always had this mindset of one day I'll grow up or one day I'll start. Like, there's no reason any of the goals that you have or the vision of the person you want to be, there is nothing stopping you from being that person today. Nothing.
Well, let me read this poem to you, and I just want you to give me your immediate reaction to this. I was neurotic for years. I was anxious, depressed, selfish. Everyone kept telling me to change. I resented them and I agreed with them. And I wanted to change, but simply couldn't, no matter how hard I tried. Then one day, someone said to me, "Don't change. I love you just as you are." Those words were music to my ears. Don't change. Don't change. Don't change. I love you just as you are. I relaxed. I came alive. And suddenly, I changed. How many people in your life have you truly experienced unconditional love?
How many people? Gosh. Um, 5, 6, gosh, everyone in my family. I would say more so right now. My mom and dad, they've had to be my caretaker until I can get all the way healthy, back on my feet. And they're not my parents are not words of affirmation people. They are acts of service. Uh and the way in which they have served me this past year has been the most remarkable thing. Like, people have it's just, just my mom and myself and my dad in our house, but it's like it's just amazing to think that there's people that will do anything for you no matter what it takes.
It was hard for you initially to ask for help and accept help.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, and what's gosh, because what's frustrating, and it's a conundrum, like, learned helplessness I would say learned helplessness is the same thing as comfortable growth. They'll both kill you. You do there we need help. When we actually need help, we should ask for it. If it's something we're capable of doing on our own, it shouldn't even be a thought. And that's the balance between, and the fight I had of wanting to get back to independence in myself, and um, just say, hey, I'm my own man. I can do whatever I want whenever I want. Because when that, say, freedom, when I didn't have that as I do, for the most part now, man, I was going crazy.
And
Yeah,
when you think through, like, why do you think it was hard for you to ask for help?
because I took on this perspective before, that I'm a man and I can do anything and I don't need help. And if there's an issue, I can solve it. And I don't, and I mean, for the most part, I solve my problems myself. I'm the one that's helping people if someone calls and needs. And then I just think the intense humility of having to ask for everything in the begin, like, can you guys help me turn in bed? Can you guys uh grab the remote for me, which is, and it's like right there, just simple things of that, I'd never thought I would ask. And the beauty in that
Mm.
is discovering and experiencing the non-judgmental care of the people around you that are like, when I know you're in a weak, vulnerable situation, and we're doing everything we can to help comfort you through this, man.
Discovering the softness, the depth of compassion that people go through is it's in light, it's transformational. On the other side, people that you thought were unconditional are revealed. How do you allow yourself to not feel resentment when people you thought would show up don't?
Case by case, uh, case by case situation. I think there,
Hey, think
um,
about the hardest one for
the
you to
hardest one.
find peace with. How did you find peace, or have you found peace?
Uh, let me think. It was more so basketball. When I when I left college and got to the NBA and then got when I was it's really when I went overseas, that's when I realized a lot of people that were in my circle, my atmosphere, were not really about just being boys with Patrick Young. Um, I would say through my accident, man, the I haven't experienced anybody in my group that's changed a perspective or a moniker of care for me. So that's been such that that's why you got to have real friendships that aren't based off of superficial things. Because when really hard things come and hit, some of those super just like roaches spreading when the light comes on. Oh, that's she dealing with, oh, I'm good. She can handle that. Mm-mm. I need those friends that are going to grab me by my neck and say, Pat, I got you, bro. What are you worried about?
Normally, we'd end with some questions for reflection, but this time I'd like to share something personal about how Patrick has impacted my life. I have a picture of him on my desk. There's a great line. It's amazing what a minute can do. That picture represents that. 1 minute can change everything about everything. For Pat, it helped him redefine masculinity. A deeper understanding was revealed to him. He's now on a path to understanding that depth of mental, emotional, and spiritual support. Perhaps the most important lesson we can learn from Pat is the importance of distinguishing what if from even if. What if thoughts are anxiety riddled thoughts based in the future. An athlete inspired by Pat said, "It's good to plan, but once you get past the second what if, you're probably spiraling." Even if statements are also based in the future, but they are laced with self trust and acceptance. There's a belief that whatever is unfolding in front of you is something you can learn from and handle. And that, in my opinion, is what it looks like to serve the moment with your highest integrity. Thanks for listening.